Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Prepare to Fight Fire podcast. Today, my guest is Tyler Whitfield. Tyler, welcome, brother.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
bro. So what's new? So we were just talking, newly promoted officer at your department. How's that? How's everything going?
It's good so far, man. I rode up for quite a bit of time before I actually got promoted. So it's funny. A lot of people ask me that actually. I just did a Tip the Spear Leadership podcast not too long ago. And
Okay.
that was a big question he had for me was like, how was your transition from firefighter or tailboard or acting driver, acted in the driver position a lot. So my transition wasn't really that much of a transition. And I say that because, um, like I know I hear it a lot on your podcast and your kind of ideals is you know, take the job by the horns. So when I was a tailboard, I took a lot of pride in being the best tailboard I possibly could. Like I wanted my skills to be the best. I wanted officers to be like, I want that dude in my crew, right? Not the fittest guy, but I work out, I do functional fitness for the fire service, but I wanted to be really good tactician, really good skills, that kind of thing. So when we go on fire alarms, I wasn't just sitting there on my phone afterwards or like sitting in the back looking around. Like I was actively engaging in like where the Knox box was, where the panels were, where the standpipe was, which stairwells had standpipes. So my transition to officer, I took the same approach. So I wanted to learn as much as I could about that position. And while riding up, I took advantage of every opportunity I could when riding up. So my transition wasn't that bad. I just basically changed the color of my shirt. Um, but a lot of the guys knew me. I worked a lot of overtime and stuff like that. So it was good, man. It's been great so far. Like I told you, I'm floating right now, so I'm kind of all over the place. I think I've ridden the seat on every unit in our department since I
Oh,
got
that's awesome. That's cool.
so pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, man, you hit a lot of important things, man. For the guests that listen to this podcast, it's an array of guests, firefighters in training, retirees, guys coming into the department, guys that have been on for a few years. You said something. You said a few things. First of all, you're a tactician, right? And another person that I've heard use that word is you're very familiar with Pablo Jenner. The guy's a solid guy, and it's so true. Being a tactician is understanding the what, the how, and the why, right? All three, and being able to truly teach people all three things as well. And before you can teach it, you have to obviously understand it, understand the ins and outs of it, and really be dedicated to that craft to perfect that and become a technician of whatever you know job title you have: firefighter, driver, officer, chief, whatever the title is. And how you approach it when we start at the firefighter position, it just translates to every position, right? So there are people that are, what they call born again, and people bash born again firefighters, right? Born again drivers, born again lieutenants. I kind of commend them. To my mindset is, you know what? At least now they're in it. At least now
Yeah.
they're in it, because we have guys that go their whole career without being in it, right? They're just
21st years.
21st year. So to me, a born again, you know what, man? At least you got with it. It's never too late to get with it. People think that too. Like, oh man, I haven't been into it my entire life. Like, why now? Well, you're one bad call away from not going home with your family. So that should be the sole reason, right? Again, if you showed up to your own house, would you would you be happy with the person that's coming, right? Is that person a technician? Does that person understand the ins and outs of everything, right? Tools, tool specs, tactics, history of the fire service, right? So most people don't even know why the Dalmatian is the dog of the represents the fire service, right? They don't understand that they have bad hearing, so like the sirens wouldn't bother their ears. Most people don't understand that Dalmatians are really aggressive, and what the dog was used for was to protect the apparatus and the equipment from other companies, because firemen were thief. They would steal shit off of people's trucks. So the dog would just hang out and protect the truck when they were on a fire at the store or whatever the case may be. And that's really understanding the job, understanding the profession. And there's so many other ins and outs. Why are there flaps behind the tires on the trucks, right? And that's from when we had horses, so that the horse shit wouldn't get on the back of the truck.
Yep.
Things like you just learn along the way that are part of the pride and tradition of the fire service. So I love that word, brother. I want to talk to you about fitness. You're a big old boy. And I've heard that when it's time to get down, it's time to work, you work. And I was talking to somebody today about, we have a misconception in the fire service that if you're skinny, you're in shape, and if you're fat, you're not. And it's not even about being fat, big, however you want to call it. To me, I want somebody who's going to work until the job gets done, right?
Yeah.
And yes, there's a level of fitness that you have to have, but there's also a level of just grit and balls and toughness, right? For women that are listening to this, because there's some badass chicks out there that are tough as fuck, and I'll take them over some guys. Where do you think you develop that toughness, that grit? Because you're very you display that, and I've talked to people, and so talk to me about it.
So, funny enough, I'm the size I am now, right? I'm like 230 pounds, but I'm like 5'10", 5'11". But I actually, when I was in high school, when I was like a senior in high school, I battled like being a little chubby my entire life. But when I was a senior in high school, I dropped from like 230 down to like 160, and I actually was doing ultra marathons. Funny enough, so my fitness like knowledge, or my knowledge of like working out or like being efficient in your movement and all that kind of stuff comes from that. So I do have a pretty good level of like that kind of thing. So I know how to train myself, and through the years just gain the weight or whatever, just through, whatever. I just am not doing ultra marathons anymore. But what happened was I actually got in a bad spot when I was running. I got lost in the woods back when I was training for ultra marathons. I was training for a 50-mile, and I was supposed to go on like a 30-minute run. And I ended up I had one water bottle with me, and my cousin was running with me, but he was like, yeah, you're a little faster than me, so just go ahead. Well, I went down the wrong trail. So I was lost in the middle of the Ocala forest, actually at Croom. I got lost, and I was lost for like 5 hours, like legit. I got to the point to where I couldn't piss. I tried to piss to drink my own piss at one point because I was so fucked up from just the exhaustion, and like my body was cramping up. Terrible. Finally, I found this lady that was running through the woods, and she's like, "You don't look good," and I'm like, "I don't feel good." So she gave me some of her Camelback, actually gave me a sip out of her thing, and gave me some salt pills and stuff, and was like, "You're like 3 miles from the trailhead that I think you're from. Just go up this trail." And I ended up getting my way back. But I ran like a steady like jog for 5 hours on zero nutrition, zero whatever. So like I've never pushed myself that hard again, but it was one of those things like I went way farther physically and mentally than I ever thought I could that day. So
Right.
like I kind of attest that to what I would assume to be some of these things that you guys do, like smoke dive and stuff like that. I'm not saying it's the same thing 100%, but it's just how where your body can go a lot farther physically and mentally than you think you have. So that's where that kind of like it showed me I can go a lot harder than I do, just because you can't go that hard all the time. You'll end up gassing yourself out.
Right.
And that's kind of what I did with the ultra marathon thing. I pushed myself a little too hard and just wasn't nutritionally sound or in the right spot. And so I stopped running, and that's when I just gained the weight. But that's when I kind of started my fire service career as well. So I train in my gear. To go back to kind of your question, I train in my gear a lot. I don't really do much outside my gear. If I'm gonna work out or I'm gonna do something at work, I put my gear on, my full gear. We just had a recruit class come through, and there's a bunch of fit dudes in there and whatever, and they're like, hey, how do we not pass out from this heat? And I'm standing there in full gear. I'm like, wear your gear. When people tell you to take it off, like I'm an instructor out here too, like I'm not going to tell you to take your stuff off and make you take it off, right? If you learn to calm your body down in your gear, you'll become accustomed to it, right? So physiologically, when you put your gear on, you don't gas out as quick, right? So that's what I do. I just train in my gear a lot, and I've become conditioned to that. Like I work out. I went to the gym this morning, but I hate the gym. I do. I honestly, I hate it. My wife's a personal trainer. She loves the gym. I go to the gym and I sit there. I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do next? I don't feel like doing that either. It's just my thing. So I do jujitsu as fitness because I think it's great mentally and physically, and I just work out my gear. So that's how I
Yeah,
stay.
bro. It's a testament because I've seen some of the fittest dudes who are absolutely useless in
Yep.
in firefighting equipment and their bunker gear. And then I've seen some unassuming cats, man, that just are animals in their gear. And it's a true testament of a few things. One, are they are they acclimated to that heat? Do they train in the heat? And two is mindset, man. It really is. It's mindset. You get a tough dude and you put him in gear, and he can hang with the best of them. He's going to be hurting for sure. He's not going to be moving at the same pace as the guys who are conditioned. But it's one of those things. It's funny because I love training in gear because it's the ultimate equalizer. It really will show people that you're not as tough as you think you are, right? And if you're not consistent in that training or that acclimate, like if you're not consistent in acclimating to that gear and you take 3 weeks off of not being in gear, you're going to be suffering. I don't care who you are. Like your body isn't just like, oh, I'm used to it. Like it's one of those things, man. Consistency compounds. And whoever's out there listening, when you're training, like he said, the only way to get better at anything is to do more of it, right? So if you're not acclimated to your gear or you're preparing for fire school, and I get this all the time, but Julian, I don't have bunker gear. No, you don't. But what you do have is access to a Walmart. And at Walmart, you can buy sweatpants and a hoodie. And everything you do should be outside in sweatpants and a hoodie. And that's a good start, right? And anybody that does that is way more prepared than the guy that's working out at a tank top at Crunch Fitness. Like there's no, you can't correlate the two, right? You can't replace outdoor functional fitness with a stairmaster at 60 degrees inside of a gym. Just you're not going to do it. So talk to me, brother. How have you come across with this mindset of being a tactician? Were you brought up in the fire department with your current department under someone who molded you, or have you always been somebody who was like, I want to be the best fireman I can be?
So I've heard coming from adversity a lot in podcasts and a lot of people talking about and just in conferences and stuff like that. To be honest, when I was in fire school, I was like 160 pounds or something, like I said. I was in very good shape. I was terrible in my bunker gear, and I was not good at skills. I was not like the top of my class. I actually failed the state fire test the first time, not physical, but the written.
Right.
And I just had to go to a Cal and challenge it, and I passed it. But there's no pictures on a scorecard. But I knew that I wasn't as good as I could be and as good as I wanted to be. So I ended up just pushing through. I got a job up in Citrus County when I started, and they were pretty hardcore there. They worked out a lot. They worked on their gear a lot. They trained a lot. And I don't really have one mentor at that point that really pushed me through, but everybody taught me the ideals of like the traditional fire service, right? Like you're the first one up, you're the last one to bed. You never miss an opportunity to train or get better or take a class. If they're going to offer it, take it. I don't give a shit if you need to do it now or want to do it now, or it pertains to your job right now, take it. Because when that time comes, that job or that skill or whatever that you need to put to use, you've at least seen something before that will just give you that little bit of a one up at that point in perfecting that craft or perfecting that skill, right? So those guys really just pushed me to be the best I could possibly be. And that was when I just decided I was going to be all in the fire service. And I have never stopped looking back, or I've never looked back. I've been full steam ahead ever since, on duty, off duty, I train on and off duty. I think it's the greatest thing in the world, greatest job in the world.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. It's a job of just opportunity. And I gotta come back and circle back to what Citrus did for you, because I gotta say, working in Marion County, it did the same thing for me. I worked with people that their intentions of being a firefighter were very clear, and it was to be the best firefighter they could be, right? Like that's all they cared about. Their second job didn't matter. What was going on at home didn't matter. What mattered was, what are we doing today to be better? Who needs to be trained up? Who needs to be put in a position of leadership to expand their confidence, to expand their knowledge in being able, or their ability to communicate with a group of people? Who's struggling at this skill? Who's really good at this skill? So let's put him in an environment where he's going to suffer or fail, so we can build him up in that area. And that's really what I was brought up in. And let me ask you, how different is that in the department now that you work for? And it's not to bash it, but What do you think the biggest difference is?
So like I said, it was very traditional. I mean, I feel like bigger departments are like my department I'm with now is a little bit bigger, city department. And you know, I feel like they kind of mold with the times. And I say that respectfully, but like recruit school, even recruit school now that I teach at every recruit school now. I teach out there all the time. And it's even different from, you know, almost 7 years ago when I came through the recruit school. It's different. You know, it's kinder, gentler, just like everything in the fire service. But I think that we're starting to get away from those ideals of, like you said, like we need to take these people and hone their skills and teach them that this job is more than just a job of coming to work and making a paycheck. Like, you know, you need to be the best you can be because the people that call us aren't in a good spot and they need our best. So to come to work and not want to get better at one thing or another is just unacceptable to me. And that's kind of how I push through now. And, you know, as a company officer, I try to do something in some way, shape, and form to make everybody on the crew better, you know, every day, if I can. So, but just that, I mean, I don't know what the difference is, man. Honestly, I can't really pinpoint what it is, but it's just
Yeah,
different.
I think there's been a disconnect with admin and the mission of the fire service. I was talking to somebody today about they did a training drill, and this new kid, he's really good, solid kid, but there was still work to do. The task was not complete, and the kid asked for water, and there it's just he's been conditioned to be able to ask for water in the recruit academy, and they give him water. Like don't be scared to ask for water, right? That's the new thing. I'm not against water. I'm not against hydrating. I'm not against neglecting the elements, right? It's hot outside. We all get it. But the problem is that now you're conditioning these individuals, these employees, that when they're on scene and the task is not complete and they're tired and they're hot, that they need water. Instead of, no, you need to complete the task,
Finish the
right?
task first.
Because
Absolutely.
the task is not gonna wait for your water break. Your brother or sister that calls a mayday needs your help now. And best believe you're not going to be the RIT team hanging out outside. You're going to be either doing a search, stretching a line, and you're going to have to go work that double time. You're going to have to get after it even more, right? Hopefully you are the RIT team hanging out outside chilling. But even if you're hanging out outside right now in the summertime, you're hot. Like you're going to be tired just sitting in gear in this heat. So we're getting away from the mission of like, listen, chief, when we call 911 or when that person calls 911, they have a problem that needs to be fixed. Is it a medical problem, technical rescue problem, a structure fire problem, extrication problem? And more likely than not, that problem, we're behind in some form, some shape or form. We're behind with time. We're behind with how bad the situation has gotten because of whatever the elements are, cars involved, buildings involved, you know, medical problem that they've had for years on end. Most of the time, we're behind. Like we're not showing up ahead of anything. Like, oh, we're ahead. Like even us training, some curveball is going to get thrown at us where fuck, we got to adapt and overcome that, right? We got to overcome all these things. And now we're positioning our employees to be conditioned mentally where they need to take a break before the job is complete. And like, I really want to have a conversation across the nation with people in these higher up positions and ask them, like, if your daughter or your son is in a car that's trapped on fire, like, do you want us to stop when we're tired, or do you want us to stop when we get them out so they're alive? Like it's that crystal clear line of like, I just don't understand the disconnect. I really don't. And I know with politics involved and staffing and all of these things coming in from people who aren't firefighters that don't understand what we're talking about, that is an influence. It 100% is, and you think differently when you're up at that level. I'm not at that level. I don't know if I ever will be, but from our level, it's just pretty clear that like you said, every day we come in, we need to be better. We need to get better. We need to adopt a skill, adopt, you know, a tactic that we can improve our time, our speed, our knowledge, our skill set every day. And if we're not doing that, what are we doing? Like what's the purpose of the fire service? Because as far back, if you watch backdrafts, like you're drilling. Like you are drilling, you are getting better, you're running in your first do, your second do, you're understanding what the high life hazards are. Like you said in the beginning, you run a fire alarm, you know where that Knox box is, right? You know what the closest stairwell is. You know what interior, exterior stairwell has a standpipe, doesn't have a standpipe. You know how far you can stretch. These are all things that you pay attention when it's not an emergency, so that when it is, we actually have that advantage, right? And even us thinking we have that advantage, we get there and the FDC is broken. So now we're behind. We're behind again, and it's just okay. We've trained with laying in our own supply line, not depending on that FDC, right? Getting ahead of that problem that we could also encounter. But it just comes from training. So let me ask you, man, your entire career, have you been with crews that have loved to train, or have you been the one that has been very pushy of just being better?
So I've been the one that's kind of pushy to be better. Because I have the mindset that I I kind of, if I don't use it, I lose it kind of mindset. And that's not the truth, but I use that as my mindset to keep pushing every day. Even if I'm not going to a fire, I practice like I go to a fire on a medical call. I'm looking at the building, I'm sizing it up in my head. I'm walking with my medical bag the same way I would go in with a hose line. I tell the guys, hey, you're running a bunch of medical calls. What's the difference of putting the medical bag on and walking the same route through the front yard or through that parking lot that you would with a hose? Think about where you would go. It doesn't take you any less time or any more time. Nobody knows what you're doing. You just choose to walk that way because you're thinking in your head, that's how I would pull a hose line. So just little things like that on calls. It's like, just, you can do these skills and get better without even doing anything to get better. Like, or, actively going out and training. You could do it on calls. After the call's over, walk around the building, look at where the standpipe is, look at all these things on your way back out, right? If you can't get a crew to go out and train them when they're already out. That's my thing. Like, I learned that from a guy had a bunch of years on, and I asked him, I said, how do you get crews to train that don't want to train? And he's like, train them when they're already out. You're not going to get them off the recliner to go out. That's going to piss people off. But when you go on a call, stand there for 5-10 minutes, and as you're walking out, kind of go over things with them, get their mindset, get where their head's at, and kind of game plan what you would do if this building was on fire, if there was a whatever in this building, what would you do? So get them while they're already out, they're already up, and
That's
it makes everybody better.
that's amazing. Yeah.
So
So brother, talk to us about everything you're involved in. I see the Cigar City Fools hat you're wearing. You're an instructor. I see at all these conferences. You love it, bro. So talk to me about what it means to you to be an instructor, what it means to you to teach and give back to the fire service, because that's really what you're doing.
yeah, so another thing I truly believe in is this job, and it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about with new recruits and new firefighters, right? This job doesn't owe you shit. It doesn't owe you a water break. Nobody owes you a water break. In my mind, if you didn't earn a water break, you don't get a water break. It's like when you play sports when you're younger. Like, yeah, when you get finish whatever we're doing, you can get a water break, right? That's how I was taught. You finish what you're doing and then you get the reward of a break. So I love training. I love giving back to the fire service because, like I said, it doesn't owe us anything. But I feel like I owe the fire service something. And my way of giving back is training, is being an instructor, because when I went through fire school and went through recruit school, there was a lot of instructors that were really good to me that did take me under their wing and teach me everything they possibly could, right? And I just want to be that mentor, that instructor. If they use me as a mentor, great. If they don't, I'm just another instructor that just teaches them something, right? I try to make sure that I use the humanistic approach. I say this a lot, even in the way I am an officer, because I'm really young. I'm 30 years old. I just turned 30 back in March. I've been on the job almost 10 years. So I use a humanistic approach to teaching, right? I try to individually get to know each person and how they learn best, how they accept criticism best, and how, try to learn about them so I can give them the most out of their day, right? Because some people take harsh criticism, some people don't. Well, I'm a firm believer, you got to give everybody a hard criticism every once in a while, or beat somebody down a little bit, but they don't always need beating down, right? So in order to build somebody up, you have to find how they learn best. And that's my mindset and how I instruct. And that's what it means to me, is I want to give people what I would expect from an instructor myself. And same thing, Cigar City Fools. We took over the chapter back in January. So we just had Rob Ramirez come up and Maddie Johnson, them from Miami area, and do a class. And we're just trying to give back as much as we can. Like I said, I didn't always get the, oh yeah, let's hear what you learned at this conference. Let's hear what you learned at this class. It wasn't like that. People hated it. They didn't want to hear it, you know. So I had to just keep pushing because I'm like, whatever, I enjoy it. I like it. You know, we don't go to fires every day. So when I go to a conference, it kind of gets me that little bit of you know, satisfaction of going to a fire or doing fireman shit. So with a bunch of like-minded people. So that's what we're kind of creating in the Fools, is obviously firemen teaching firemen, a bunch of like-minded people just trying to get better and learn and be the best versions of ourselves we can.
Yeah, man, it goes to say anybody out there that hasn't been to a conference, you got to go. Not only will you learn things from people that you never thought you would be learning from, but you learn that there's 1,000 ways to do things, right? And your department's way, just because it's your department and they taught you and they claim that this is the best, it's not. It's not. Like, you've got people teaching at these conferences that train harder than you do, that go to more fires than you do, or they travel the country learning from people that do things at a higher rate of efficiency, right? It's one of those things. A good friend of mine, Basil, with his proactive rescue operations, his company is doing an amazing job with setting the RIT culture up for success in an aggressive manner. And the guy has been training on it for decades, right? RIT, like active RIT, aggressive RIT. Like, he's been training on it for just so long that now when he goes to teach it, you would think the guy has been involved in all these RIT operations, when in all reality, he's got thousands of hours of training in something that he's very comfortable with. And now when he teaches it to people, they're just taking away so many gems and so many nuggets. And whatever conference you go to, I would recommend not only taking the hands-on classes, but the lectures are great too. You've got guys that are speaking from years, decades of experience of things that work, things that don't work, lessons learned. And everybody at a conference that I've experienced is super, for the most part, humble, because they failed, right? They've come in with a bad attitude of like, I do know everything, and they come really quickly to find out that they don't. And from that, they take that lesson back home and they say, okay, I have so much to learn. And when you go to these conferences, you become familiar with the perspective of, we've got a lot of growth we need to employ. And that goes for everybody, from FDNY to Miami-Dade to Orlando to Ocala. Any department that you name out there, everybody can grow in some nature, and these conferences put you in a good headspace of that. And like you said about the camaraderie, you're just surrounded by good energy, right? People that want to be better. And at the end of the day, when you go to work, remember that not everybody there is going to have that energy. And it's not your job to change anybody. It's your job to bring just a little bit of good energy so people can see, like, what's the point, right? Because, we work with people all the time, and that's their attitude. Like, why are we doing this? What's the point? And then you just show them a little bit of like why. And for the most part, most people will just jump on the train. So Tyler, brother, before we end this, what advice would you give somebody? What advice would you give yourself coming in day one of the fire service from what you know now?
Uh, like I said, my biggest thing I stuck with me was just never pass up an opportunity to train, to get better, to learn something, even if it's not something that pertains to your current position as a firefighter, as a driver, as a lieutenant, whatever. And especially day one, you're an open book, right? Or a blank book with nothing in it, right? You're waiting for people to write in your book. So take whatever people want to write in that and put a bookmark in it. And when you need that part of your book, go back and find whatever those people gave to you and pass it on. If you learn something, pass it on.
That's amazing. Thank you, brother, for coming on. I appreciate you. And like, guys, as always, share, like, and more episodes are to come. So take care.